final minute. Bennett for the pocket. Launches to the end zone. Touchdown. A.D. Mitchell.
Chase McGrath for the win for the Volunteers. From 40. On the way, knuckleball. He got it.
Well, we have the rematch this week of that game that you just saw between Tennessee and Alabama, and we also have a Scarlet out in Columbus for the second consecutive time that Penn State's been to Columbus. They're having a Scarlet out over there, and then much more, such as the Paul Bunyan's X. We got uniforms to talk about, end zones to talk about. But before we get to all of that, check out my TikTok, Bash the CFB Show on TikTok. It's where I'm the most active. Also Twitter there at Bash_CFB. And you can go on to Bash_CFB on Twitch to catch the live streams. If you comment, like, and subscribe also here on YouTube, that would be much appreciated because we are trying to have a community. An opinion, my opinion, your opinion, doesn't matter, plus discussion. The discussion between one another equals the community that we are trying to build. We are trying to build that college football community. Let's get straight into these previews here. Penn State on the road at Ohio State, a massive, massive game in the Big Ten East. You could maybe say an elimination game for Ohio State. Now, Penn State does have a little bit tougher of a road ahead than Ohio State as it holds as a total, but it's the Ohio State Buckeyes who has to go to Michigan and has maybe the less likely opportunity to beat the Wolverines. That is something that is definitely a conversation we have to have when those games come individually, but this is the game that we're going to talk about. Now, Penn State's inability to make explosive plays versus Ohio State not allowing a single play over 40-plus yards. Can Penn State create that type of explosive offense somehow in this game? Well, the key to that, Keandre Lambert-Smith. He's going to be matched up against a secondary that might be without their number one outside corner in Denzel Burke. In fact, I have a hunch, and I've had a hunch all week, that Denzel Burke's not going to play this week. I hope that's not the case. I want both these teams at full strength, but me certainly going to the game, being an Ohio State fan, definitely would love to see Denzel Burke, who has been fantastic through the first half of the season this year. On the Penn State defensive side, Kalen King, Johnny Dixon, both of them really, really good corners. Not quite the duo that Benjamin Morrison and Cam Hart bring to the table, but that front seven is a little bit more dominant than the front seven that you have at Notre Dame. Chop Robinson, a pass rusher that they hadn't faced even with Jordan Patello and Javonte Jean-Baptiste at Notre Dame. They have a linebacker core that matches and probably supplants based on the fact that the best linebacker, in my opinion, in the country is at Penn State right now in Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter, super aggressive, a pass rushing type of guy. He's very effective when it comes to rushing the passer, but he misses a ton of tackles, specifically in open space. That's where I'm going to be looking at this running back room. That's where I'm going to be looking at these wide receivers or tight end, Cade Stover, specifically over the middle. Are they going to be able to force those missed tackles that we need to see from this Penn State defense for Ohio State to have success? And then finally, young quarterback Drew Aller in a big game. Young quarterback, or I should say not as experienced quarterback as well, on the other side with Kyle McCord, playing against maybe the best overall defense that they've faced. Notre Dame, like I said, pretty close to what Penn State has to offer, but Penn State is rated the number one defense in America for a reason. So this could very well be his best opportunity to go up against the number one defense. Is he going to be able to take care of the football? He threw a bunch of throws against Notre Dame that easily could have been picked, even if they weren't picked. Ohio State needs to, at the very least, keep that turnover battle within one, right? They cannot lose the turnover battle by more than one. If you turn the ball over once, I think this defense is good enough to cover your butt a little bit at Ohio State. Now, last year, we saw what happened when JT Tuimoloau absolutely took over the game. You cannot count on that to happen yet again. That was a probably once-in-a-lifetime type of performance from JT Tuimoloau, something you probably won't see from a defensive end in a very long time. I think that expecting him to take over the game yet again is kind of crazy, but where I'm going to be looking is the interior guys. Michael Hall Jr. and Tyleik Williams clogging up the middle, specifically clogging up the run game, is going to be crucial because this run game has not had success the way that a lot of people would think that they should with guys like Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, and even the depth with Trey Potts. Now, this Penn State offensive line has been very good with pass protection. They have not necessarily faced a great pass rushing team, but they did play Jerzon Newton, who's probably the best defensive tackle in all of America. Not necessarily the duo that you're going to get from Tyleik Williams, Michael Hall Jr., but you've already seen a better individual player than what you're going to see in the game, more than likely in Jerzon Newton at Illinois. Illinois' defense gave Penn State some fits. Northwestern's defense gave Penn State some fits. Both of them were the road games right there. Iowa's defense also gave Penn State fits. I think Ohio State gives Penn State's defense fits a little bit more than what Ohio State is going to, get as far as fits from Penn State. And I think Ohio State, with the wide receiver room that they have, with the offensive line, hoping to play a little bit better, and mainly because this defense has upgraded and leveled up, I think Ohio State wins a low-scoring game. I think Ohio State wins this one 24-21. I think it's really tight. I think Penn State has the ball late with a chance to drive, and the Ohio State defense stands up and keeps them out of field goal range, and the Buckeyes win. Like I said, 24-21, right on that 45 mark, right around that spread. Don't touch this game. Just have fun with it. Maybe if you want to do like a anytime touchdown scorer, you can do Katron Allen, Cade Stover. Those are two that I like. But outside of that, let's move on. Washington State on the road at Oregon. Boy, two teams coming off of losses, but polar opposite losses. You're talking about maybe, if there is such a thing, a best loss for Oregon, a team that felt like they should have won the game. Coaching mistakes might have prevented them from winning the game, versus a Washington State team that absolutely got dominated at home against Arizona 44-6. And there's a reason why this spread is at 20. Now, is Cam Ward going to be able to play better for this Washington State team? I'm not sure. I do think that this Oregon offense is going to have a little bit of a hangover, especially because they might sleepwalk through this game thinking that Washington State is not as good of a defense as they actually are. Very experienced, very talented, all over the board. I think that the under might be a play here, but I think that Washington State's able to keep it close for a while, play with some pride, but I think Oregon pulls away. One of two things to me is going to happen here, and both results in Oregon winning this football game at home in Autzen Stadium. Either Oregon sleepwalks through it and they have to pull away in the end and Washington State covers, or they just blow Washington State out because Washington State has mailed it in after that loss against Arizona. I don't think Oregon's mailing it in. I think they know that their ultimate goal is to get to that Pac-12 championship with a potential rematch against the Washington Huskies. And with a game on the road at Washington coming down to the wire like that, I feel like Oregon thinks that they're the better team that let one get away. I think Oregon wins. I think Washington State slightly covers. I'm going to take Oregon, like I said, a little bit lower scoring than a lot of people would expect. But I'm going to take Oregon to win 34-17. Moving on, number 19 Tennessee, number 11 Alabama on the road in Tuscaloosa. I'm going to tell you this straight up, 9.5 is just way too much. This is going to be a one-score game, even if it doesn't feel like a one-score game. Alabama's not pulling away from anybody. They are struggling when it comes to pass protection, and guess what Tennessee's been doing a really good job of doing? Pressuring the quarterback, getting a quarterback on the ground, getting sacks, and their secondary seems like they're a beat faster. This Tennessee defense has actually been playing lights out. It's terrible timing because their offense has not been. Now, Jalen Wright has looked good in the run game, but nobody, and I mean nobody, not even Texas in that win, was able to really run the ball in Alabama with much success. So how Tennessee is going to win this game is pretty simple. We need to see something from their pass game we haven't seen all season. We need a little bit of 2022 Tennessee in this game for them to win. I do not think that's going to happen. I'm taking Alabama to win, Tennessee to cover. I'm going to pick Alabama to win this game 23-17, a one-score game. Comes down to the wire, but that Bama defense just does not break at the end of the day. I'm taking the Crimson Tide. How about Michigan and Michigan State? This is really cool. I want to show you guys this right now. These uniforms are absolutely epic right here. Now, this is a little Photoshop. I wish I could have found the right picture there. In that helmet there, it's going to be a Spartan instead of that. Or I think that might be an older uniform. This is something that they're going to be doing, though. They're breaking out that blackout concept. I think it's going to be absolute hype in East Lansing, a great way of promoting. But coming off of 4 straight losses and one where you were up big against Rutgers and completely choked it away, I don't trust this Michigan State team to even cover, let alone win this game. I think they're going to be fired up. I think this game is going to be close for a little bit early, but Michigan's a way better team, and they're clearly going to pull away. Nathan Carter needs to have a big day. That's the only way that Michigan State can stay in this game. And, of course, Michigan's offense just not executing. Overall, I'm going to take Michigan to win. I don't think it's going to be relatively close, but the blackout thing is going to be cool. It'll be a pretty decent and cool scene to see on NBC. So maybe it's something you want to tune into or have on a side screen or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think that Michigan is the far better team, and they're going to win this game easily by a score. I'm going to predict 41-7. So they do cover, they win. But I would love to see a close game here. I would love to just see, and I know I'm a Buckeye fan and I'm saying that, but to see that blackout actually have an impact and maybe steal a little bit of headlines, that would be really cool. Michigan with the off-the-field distractions, with all that's going on, I don't want to get into that because the details of the situation has not been released whatsoever. But if you guys are living under a rock, they're being accused, of course, of spying on teams essentially and stealing signal or stealing signs. We'll see whatever comes of that. I'm not going to be one to try to project forward and say, hey, Michigan's like screwed. This is their last shot. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm just going to say this. They do have off the field distractions potentially, and that's an angle to watch for. I'm definitely not playing this game, but I do like Michigan to cover. Duke, number 14 in my rankings at number 6, Florida State. 14.5-point favorites for the Seminoles. Now, this is all hinging on whether or not Riley Leonard plays. But, man, that Duke defense is really, really good. But how exactly are they going to be able to defend Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, and an underrated threat at tight end in Jaheim Bell? Not too many people talking about him. A lot of people were talking about Brock Bowers before his injury, rightfully so. A lot of people talking about Cade Stover, but not a ton of people talking about this guy, Mr. Jaheim Bell, the South Carolina transfer. Jordan Travis's health, though, is definitely a question, as well as the other number 13 playing quarterback in Riley Leonard. So it's really going to come down to this. Is Florida State going to be able to stuff the run? I think that Florida State covers if they just completely shut down the run game, because even with a healthy Riley Leonard, I don't think this passing attack is super dynamic for the Florida or for the Duke Blue Devils offense. I think it catches up with them a little bit here. I think they will still find success running the ball, and I think they're going to slow down that Florida State offense enough to stay in the game. But overall, the spread is pretty close. The more I've thought about this, I'm going to go with Florida State 31-17 to win this game. I would love to see a close game. I would love to see Duke win and throw a little bit of chaos into this, but I don't think it's going to happen. I'm hoping that I'm wrong, though. At 8 Eastern time on Fox, we get a rematch of the Pac-12 Championship. That was a rematch of that game in Salt Lake City. That was an absolute thriller, 43-42. I went back and watched it, but there was something there that isn't there this year. He's not going to be playing. They're going to go with Bryson Barnes. It's Cam Rising being out, and that's big. Bryson Barnes is a massive drop off. You know, God love the kid, but yeah, it's a massive drop off from what Cam Rising brings to the table. Now, will you still have those mismatches at the tight end spot? I do. Even with Brent Keithy not healthy, I do think that you do have those mismatches, but I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball. I think that USC's defense played significantly better last week, and I think USC's offense has something to prove off of that game last week. I kind of lean, especially if you're getting this at 7 and you could potentially get a push if this game is close. I kind of think USC wins comfortably, not super duper comfortably. They're not going to blow out Utah, but I think they win this game somewhere in the neighborhood of like 42-24 or something like that. I think they still allow points, especially later in the game. If they're up by a couple of scores, they tend to do that. I'm not high on USC whatsoever. I got them ranked below Utah at number 21. And that's mainly because of how pathetic they looked last week, and also the fact that they have just such a lackluster resume of wins behind them. But hey, they did beat Arizona in triple overtime. I guess Arizona's a pretty solid team. I'm going to go with USC here against my rankings, and I'm going to take the over 53. That seems very low to me. Maybe Vegas knows that this is going to be like Oregon State versus USC game of last year that ended 17-13. I don't know. I'm going to tune in. I'm not playing this. I'm telling you, this is not part of Walk That Line because that over-under is weird to me. So I'm going to go with USC to win and cover. And we'll just have to see if I have a good read on what the Trojans bring to the table this week. Clemson on the road at Miami. This is very interesting. I feel like Miami is a little bit broken right now. Specifically, I feel like their offense is just missing a little bit. Now, they had moments against North Carolina, but after they went up 17-14, for them to give up the run to North Carolina last week, that they did allow the Tar Heels to go on, this offense just looked abysmal during that run, specifically in the third quarter coming out of halftime. They're getting completely outcoached. They're going up against Clemson, who has, all criticism valid, I feel like, of Dabo Swinney, but a very experienced coach who's won multiple national titles at this stop. And I think that if Garrett Riley is cooking with this offense, I think Clemson's going to have success. I'm going to take Clemson to win. I'm liking the over for sure too, but I'm going to take Clemson to win and cover. I think they're a much better team than Miami, specifically how they're playing. They're not more talented, and Miami could definitely win this game. I'm not saying they can't, but I'm taking Clemson to win this about 31-20, and I think a late score makes it 31-20 for Miami. So I think Clemson, they go on the road and they get it done. Shout out to that one time they went on the road to Coral Gables and won something crazy like 70-7 or whatever it was. Georgia State is on the road at Louisiana. A very tricky spot for the Georgia State Panthers, who have started off the season really, really hot. They played a gritty Rhode Island FCS team, and they struggled to a victory, specifically struggled on defense. But that defense has continued to get better. That offense continues to thrive with Darren Granger, and I think that they have something there. But Louisiana has something in this rush offense that could definitely poison a little bit of this Georgia State attack. I don't think that Louisiana is going to be able to consistently move the ball as much to be able to keep up with Georgia State. I think a lot of points are going to be scored, but I'm going to just say this. I just have a hunch. I have a feeling that Georgia State's going to win this game. I don't necessarily know it because it is a road game. It's at Louisiana on a Saturday night. But I just kind of have this feeling that Darren Granger and the boys and Sean Elliott and this squad is going to get up and they're going to be able to put up a lot of points and win this game against Louisiana, something in the neighborhood of like 45-38, 45-35, a super high scoring game. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to have this on and definitely rewatch it because the primetime slate is absolutely elite. I'm excited for it. All right, walk that line. I'm taking Arkansas over 27.5 against a Mississippi State defense that has been reeling a little bit. They allowed Western Michigan to have some success offensively last week. They've also allowed Alabama to put up a 40-burger on them a couple weeks ago as well. I think Mississippi State's defense is not that good. That's a low total. I'm taking Arkansas over 27.5. I'm taking Memphis and UAB's over of 61.5. Fireworks for Trent Dilfer's offense, and I don't think they're going to be able to stop Seth Hennigan and this Memphis attack, especially with an extra day to prepare for this game. Tennessee plus 9.5. I think this is a one-score game, no matter how you draw it. I'm going to take Tennessee to cover against Alabama. Tulane minus 20.5. They are so much better than North Texas. It is not funny. I smell a blowout of like 52-10 coming in this one. So I'm taking Tulane minus 20.5 with laying the big number. Eastern Michigan plus 11.5. They're on the road at Northern Illinois. I'm still not fully buying Northern Illinois. I think Eastern Michigan's good enough to stop them on defense enough with Chris Creighton's attack there on defense, and Samson Evans in this rushing attack is going to be able to keep it close. I think this one is within 10 points, plus 11.5 for Eastern Michigan. Minus 2.5 UTSA. This is an interesting number as they play against Florida Atlantic, but I definitely think UTSA is the better team. They're 3-3, which is definitely a disappointing start to a UTSA program that has had tremendous success the last couple of years with Jeff Traylor. Traylor is still there. That offense is still really, really good. They've played a pretty tough schedule with Army on a weeknight. That was one of their 3 losses. I think UTSA covers the 2.5. North Carolina over 40.5 against Virginia. This could be a weird spot for them, but they're at home, and I think they're just so much better than Virginia, and they're going to completely outweigh them. And again, they're trying to get that full Tez Walker story completely blown out there into the media. Why not try to force feed Tez Walker and get him 2 touchdowns in this ball game? Kansas State minus 6.5 against TCU. I am not a buyer in TCU. I don't care what they did last week. Now, the Big 12, again, just like last year, chaotic. It's just less chaotic at the top because it seems like Texas and Oklahoma are separated from the pack, though we have barely had a sample size of Big 12 play. We will see in the final six weeks of the season whether or not that's truly the case that they have separated from the pack, Oklahoma and Texas. But one thing's for sure, they keep beating each other. They keep beating up on one another. I'm taking Kansas State minus 6.5 because I feel like TCU was just a beneficiary of beating up on one another. And I think Kansas State is going to be able to take advantage of a TCU team that's riding a little bit too high off of that result last week. And Kansas State also still with a little bit of a bad taste in their mouth, even after that Texas Tech win last week. I think that they're playing good football, and they had a very bad game in Stillwater on that Friday night a couple weeks ago. Colorado State and UNLV, fireworks. Braden Fowler and Nicolosi is going to light up this UNLV defense, and this UNLV offense has been electric all year. Their only losses to Michigan on the road. I do not know if they're going to win this game. I think they should be able to win this game. I do think Colorado State is going to cover because I think this is going to be an absolute shootout over 62.5. Again, absolute shootout between Georgia State and Louisiana. Over 63.5 right there. But I'm going to take Georgia State to cover plus 3.5. If they're going to lose this game, I'm hoping they just lose by 3 points. Washington, minus 27.5. I smell a blowout coming against an Arizona State defense that just does not have the firepower to slow down Washington. The only thing I'm worried about is a hangover spot for the Washington Huskies, but I think that they're going to preach about how this Arizona State, university, this football program has been able to upset teams in the past off of these big wins that they have had, like that Oregon win that they had last week. So that is what I'm going to do with Walk That Line. We went 9-3 last week. Hopefully we can continue with that success. That is 12 more plays for you, just like last week. Yeah, I feel like 12 is a pretty good number to play. We'll see if it ends up being that way. The final thing I want to do before we get out of here is to show you this. LSU's camo end zone is really, really cool. I think that this is awesome as they are playing Army this week. And by the way, just a quick thing, Air Force and Navy is going to be tremendous. I'm going to be at the Ohio State game, so I can't tune in live, but I'll definitely watch that replay. I think Air Force definitely wins that game. Whether or not they cover, I don't know, but and their starting quarterback is in Courier is Zach Courier, right? He's out for this game. So we'll see how that offense looks as Justin Jones is going to be in the game. I'm curious to see how this goes for the Air Force Falcons. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Just like I mentioned at the top of the video, you guys have a fun weekend of college football. Go Bucs.